mean, can I give an example that I actually think is a better example than the divorce one?
Please, but I will never attempt to interrogate your person if you don't offer it up.
Yeah, that's okay. Fine. You know, in a way, this sort of reveals our difference. It's like I think through my personal life. That's like the lens or something.
No, you think through your personal life.
That's also true.
But there are levels at which I could interrogate that would be different than the levels at which you're interrogating.
Yes, absolutely. But I might still have those in my head, even if I don't say them. So, like, when I, like, having that conversation with my ex-husband, who I'm good friends with, we were divorced, 2011. It's a long time ago, right?
Yeah.
That really wasn't so hard. But there's a thing I did in 2011, which is that I gave a talk about getting divorced in 2011. Because our divorce caused a huge, he's a faculty member at Chicago, and it caused this huge sort of emotional response in the whole community. And a lot of people hated me. A lot of people still don't really talk to me as a result of it.
Just because of your divorce, even though the two of you have accepted yourself?
Correct. But it was like, sometimes there are wounds that are created and then they get supported. I don't know what the right word is. It's like they get scarred over.
It doesn't sound like it comes from the divorce. It comes from the etiology of the divorce.
Yes, right. So but I gave a talk about this, about getting divorced and falling in love and what love and marriage and divorce are. And I gave this talk because I was worried. I didn't mind if people were, didn't like me or my choices or whatever, except my students. I was worried about my students. I was worried that if the students that I had taught came to sort of, accept a bunch of gossip and rumor about me, that it would both undo the teaching that I had done of them and get in the way of potential teaching in the future. That it was like a professional obligation that I had to clarify the situation for my students. Like, I don't mind if people gossip about me, but I do mind if the people I'm trying to teach.
But I don't even think I don't believe you that you don't mind if people gossip about you. You may not be able to control it.
I do. Right. That's all I meant. What I meant was I don't have a moral obligation to try to correct that. But I did feel I had an obligation. And there was a lot of pressure, like people, through back channels were telling me, like, don't give this talk. do not give a public talk about your life. And it was like,
can you say what the contents of the talk were about? Or
absolutely. Someday I'll publish it.
Not okay.
Someday. It was, so, really, in some ways, the talk was quite academic. It was a talk about love. So it started with the circumstances, which is, I was married to someone and I fell in love with someone else.
Okay.
And then I was like, I didn't think that was like the kind of person I was, the kind of person to whom that could happen, but it did happen. And I tried to explain it, and I tried to explain it using some of the texts that I think shed the most light on my own situation. So they were, I think I talked about this passage from Henry James's Wings of the Dove and from Plato's Symposium about what I thought love was and how it was related to the kind of quest to become a person.
Okay.
So that's what the talk was about. But it was like I wanted to give to my students my own understanding of what had happened to me. I felt very much like, this might be self-aggrandizing, but I felt like Socrates when Socrates says in the Apology, I want to show to you the meaning of what has happened to me. And he's speaking there after they've condemned him to death. And he says, and he's already spoken to the people who condemned him. He's like, to the people who voted not to condemn me, to my students, to my friends, I want to show to you the meaning. I want you to understand. And it was really important to him that those people understand, because he didn't want to sabotage the educational project that they had been involved in. And that's what I felt at that time.
So in other words, in order for me to infer why you would do this, because it's a rather odd thing to do at one level and very understandable at another, I would have to surmise and infer that you had in fact invested certain teachings of yours to your students with the personal, therefore calling in. You see, one thing.
I actually no, that's not quite right. So first of all, I don't have any teachings. So I hadn't invested.
You teach ethics?
Absolutely.
Okay. I can't imagine wanting to teach ethics, because if I'm aware of my own ethical failings, and there are many. They are many and varied and unremarkable.
Yeah.
The idea of getting up and talking about ethical failings of others and why you shouldn't fail ethically